I'm mad, but not that mad. Welcome in to the DNVR Avalanche post-game show, live from the Toyota Lounge, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships and presented by Bet365. It is the Losers Lounge. The Avs dropped this one 3-2 to the Boston Bruins, their first regulation loss of the season. Bailey and Rudo coming to you live. I have two minds about this game. There's a part of me that just wants to be frustrated and rant for an hour on this post-game show about all the stupid stuff, both the Avs' fault and not, that happened in that game. And then there's another part of me that actually believes that the Avs weren't that bad for a good portion of this hockey game. They had major mistakes that ended up costing them the hockey game, but there is also pretty decent hockey in here. You just struggled to score goals, which kind of important, to be fair.
Yeah.
But Bailey, what's your vibe on this game?
As much as I want to say toss this one into the sun, there is good to take out of it. There's more bad to take out of it that I think the Avalanche should be focusing on. The plus, they started out a hockey game good.
They did.
They started out a hockey game on the right side of it, which is what you and I talked about in pregame, what we wanted from them to start out the hockey game well. And then it falls apart. And part of that's due to, things, defensive breakdowns. Wedgwood gives up a not great looking one, and I don't know. It's concerning, I think, is the best way I can encapsulate this game.
Well, I want to talk about that more, but we need to do a 60-second rundown first. So let's hit that. First 15 minutes, no notes. I think that's about as good as Avs can play hockey. They're out shooting Boston 10-1. They get on the board first early with a beautiful play from McKinnon to Lehkonen. You feel good about what you're seeing. And then the Avs make two major mistakes in a 40-second window. There's some bad coverage on the first goal, but Wedgie gets out of position and a puck gets shot in off of him and into the net. You don't love that. Sam Malinski then just straight up misses a puck and creates a 2-on-1 that there's nothing Wedgwood can do on that one. The Malinski decision there, you cannot screw up. You just can't miss that puck. It's 2-1 Boston after the first, despite the Avs dominating the first 14, 15 minutes of it. Second period was kind of meh. I think that was the most disappointing period of the game for me. The Avs didn't really get it up into gear the way you wanted to see after trailing after that first period. And then another massive mistake from both Josh Manson and Scott Wedgwood with 10 seconds left in the second, and you're down by 2 going into the third instead of 1. You're doomed from there. A nothing goal in the third is all the Avs muster for a 3-2 final. Close enough to 60 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, concern levels. Let's talk about this. Because I think if you're looking at the game itself, totally. Lots of stuff to be concerned about. But also, it's their first regulation loss of the season. Big picture, I'm not that worried about it. Eventually, every mistake is going to stop ending up in the back of the Avs net, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Eventually, you're not going to run into a goalie who decides to have his best game of the year against the Avs. And the Avs only mustered 32 shots instead of 48 tonight, so they don't get it into overtime because the Avs have to put up tantalizing numbers of shots to get the goals that they need. It just feels like it's a struggle for them to score. But also, that's a problem. It needs to not be a struggle for the Avs to score.
I'm so tired of running into hot goaltenders because that's been the name of the game, at least for the last couple.
For this stretch of losses, for sure.
It's all credit to Swayman. He plays, an incredible first to shut down what really was a dangerous Avalanche team. But it's, I don't know. You want more out of Wedgwood in certain cases. Run into a little bit of what I would maybe call a little bit of fatigue, but also he's not a guy who's normally used to starting. So there's that. That second line, though. Brock Nelson.
Tough game.
Yeah.
Tough game for Brock
Nelson.
We'll talk about that. Tough game for the Avs, third pairing, too. A few too many holes, but I look, this is a game I like to play. I know it makes some people mad, and at the end of the day, the result of the game is the only thing that matters. But I just want to, in your mind, ignore the scoreboard. Just pretend you don't know the score of this game. Scoring chances, 22-13 in the Avs' favor. That's not even correct. Sorry, 30-13 in the Avs' favor. High danger chances, 14-4 in the Avs' favor at 5-on-5. Avs only gave up 1.5 expected goals at 5-on-5, and they got 3 scored on them. Yes, they trailed for the game. Yes, there is a bit of score effects going into that, but this is not a game where the Avs' overall process was bad. Mm-mm. Second period, a little lackadaisical. Yes. Power play, a problem we'll talk about again. Yes. But at 5-on-5, this is another reasonably good game on the whole for the Avs, but a reasonably good game does not fix the gigantic, massive errors that end up in the back of your net. You bet on the Avs to win games like this by the underlying numbers, but you just cannot continue to give up plays that are essentially assured goals.
At 5-on-5, it's really easy. It is, as you said, really easy to bet on the Avalanche, and it's a game they should have gotten ahead of.
Yep.
It's
they were ahead of.
They were ahead of
until they weren't.
One point. And I think that's the most frustrating part of this for me is reading off all those stats. Dominant in most of the stats that should have mattered.
Yep.
But
not the only stat that does matter.
No. So, I don't know. It's just such a frustrating game for me.
It is. It absolutely is.
But again, I mean, as much as we may harp on this and then, move forward, it is their first regulation loss.
It is.
It's, for me, one of the first ones. There's maybe one or two during the stretch so far that I'm on. It wasn't enough. This is a game, at the end of the day, they couldn't produce. It's not on Wedgwood. It's a lack of finishing, a lack of scoring. At the end of the day, if you can't put the back in the net, you deserve to lose. I
think it's a little on Wedgwood, but yes, you can't go into a game where you scored one real goal. I'm sorry, no. A goal with 18 seconds left in the game does not matter.
No.
The universe, the number of things that would have to go right for the Avs to have scored another goal and get that game to overtime is too many. You have to produce. And if you're looking for a bright side, hey, credit to the Avs top line. McKinnon and Lehkonen had something going tonight that was real pretty. Good to see that. A good bounce back game from Nathan McKinnon after 2 that I felt he wasn't very good in. It's just they didn't get it from anybody else.
No.
Third line wasn't great. Second line, obviously disappointing.
Fourth line didn't play enough minutes for it to matter.
You were trailing the whole game, so your fourth line kind of got chopped off the bench a little bit there.
Yep.
Where does the step up come from? It's easy for me to say, hey, here's all these plays where the Avs made massive mistakes. But how do you step up and fix those?
It comes down to consistency in a sense for me, that and some of the players that you have just have to be better.
Yeah.
It's having, we talked about depth during pregame and that being the difference maker from a great team to an elite team. This was not that kind of team.
It was not.
Tonight. And that's where the issue for me lies, is some of these guys who are having, decent games here and there. This third line we've talked about consistently or it's at least somewhat consistently about being a difference maker for this team, was not there tonight. The second line has shoddy games here and there, and they don't do it.
Yeah.
I really loved Josh Manson again tonight, but as a whole, defense just was not stepping up offensively as much as I would have liked them to. That third pairing, again, fire that into the sun. It comes down to a consistency through depth for me, and that's really all there is to it. If you get more lines than just Lehkonen and McKinnon that are clicking, this is a much different game.
It is. And some of that boils down to nothing less than finishing. Mm-hmm. I know we'll get into it more, but you're in that third period, and Brock Nelson had a rough game.
Yeah. I think that's putting it lightly.
Yeah, pretty disappointing for me after I thought he was taking a step in the right direction last game. And all of that is fine. People have bad games, but you have to find ways to be effective. And a play that stands out to me in the third period, it's kind of a broken play, but Nichushkin's able to get a puck to Nelson, and Nelson cuts through the middle and has a good opportunity, and he shoots it right into Swayman's logo. A shot that just isn't that competitive, which caps off essentially a game for him where way too many offensive plays are just dead on his stick. It's disappointing from a veteran especially, because that is a player who you say, hey, he's been around forever. You should consistently know what you're going to get out of a Brock Nelson day in and day out. And for him to be up and down the way he's been, and ultimately, despite some weirdness where you feel like he might deserve a couple more points, he's got 2 points in 9 games.
I don't know about you, but it's a situation for me where in a couple games from now, when it doesn't change, you're asking, is the 2C problem really fixed? As much as we'd like it to be.
I'm not going to fully decide an answer to that until like game 20, probably. Okay. But yeah, if we don't see production start happening in the next 3 or 4 games, season's over 10% over. And Brock Nelson has 2 points. You cannot be a 30-point guy.
Yeah.
If you're a second line center.
No.
You can't.
And I know we talk all the time too about like roles from each line too, but you can be a defensively sound line and still have the expectation that you're putting pucks in the back of the net, or at least generating some of that offense. Yeah.
If you're a top 6 player, I don't think it's unfair to ask you to be a 50-point guy.
No. No.
Otherwise, you should be playing on the third line then. You haven't earned your keep in that regard.
No.
And like second line as a whole, fair enough. You need Landy to produce too. He's only got 2 points on the season. Nichushkin has been significantly better than the other two, so yes. I don't really have a bone to pick with him. But also just mechanically, I thought Landy was decent tonight, even if the points didn't come. And Nelson, it was rough all the way around. So a tough pill to swallow on a night where you needed a goal. You needed someone else to step up and beyond your first line. And you didn't get it. And you've been getting enough for me out of your third and fourth lines. Those are not lines you're asking to score every night. And they've given you some pretty big goals. Yeah, even if some of them are silly, going off of Parker Kelly's hand or whatever.
A goal's a goal.
They count. Exactly. So your second line, we're going to do this dance until they start being more consistent. I have no doubt in the next couple of games they're going to get on the board and we're all going to breathe a sigh of relief again. But then they have to keep doing it.
Yeah. No, and again, that just goes back to my earlier point, is consistency.
Yep.
Is that this shouldn't be a dance that we're doing.
It shouldn't, but it is.
Through this many losses, it's, again, when is enough enough? When does that start to become addressed? I don't know.
When they need it. And they haven't really needed it until tonight.
Yeah.
Not to say that they couldn't have used it, but they've been mostly getting away with the nights where the second line wasn't producing up until today.
Right.
So maybe the first red flag going up.
This is, I think, the first situation where they're finally realizing 1 point is not enough.
Yep. Yep.
So
You got to step up.
yep.
We do have plenty more to talk about, but we need to take our first break of the show as we have one of our newer partners to talk about in Dick's Sporting Goods. Make sure you're getting into Dick's today. You can even find DNVR merch in most Dick's in the Front Range. So if you want to pick up some of our shirts, you can go get that. Rep them for us because it's a cool thing to do. Or, we also have some pretty cool shirt designs, I'm not going to lie. But you can stop by your local Dick's for more than just DNVR merch. They have the hottest apparel and footwear from top brands like Nike, Adidas Originals, FP Movement, VRST, Calia, and more. Plus, you can score the latest equipment for whatever sport you're looking to play, and even tailgating essentials. If you find stuff at a lower price, Dick's matches it, best price guarantee. So get your gear fast with free curbside pickup at your nearest store or easy shipping from Dicks.com because every season starts at Dick's. Once you got all of your gear from Dick's, make sure you also get in with the folks. Oh no, I'm on the wrong ad reads. Please hold. Let me find the real ad reads, and then we'll finish this great segment that I'm having right now. Dude, what is Monarch? Thank you. Tiff's got my back. I don't have my own back, kind of like the Avs tonight. Monarch Money will have your back when it comes to the finances, though. Jump in with Monarch. They are one of the best finance apps out there. They give you your complete financial picture. You can get, obviously, your investments, your actual bank account, other ways. You can see where you're spending all of your money in different categories. It's a great way to track everything when it comes to your finances. It was even rated one of the best finance apps out there by multiple people like Forbes and the Washington Post. I think that's the right one. Whatever you need your money to do, Monarch Money can help you out, and you can save a little bit of money today by going to Monarch Money and using code DNVR to get 50% off your first year. That's half off your first year of Monarch Money at monarchmoney.com with code DNVR. All right, we got there. We got there eventually.
Nice.
Just as sloppy as the Avs on their mistakes with that one.
Yeah.
Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Let's get this conversation out of the way just because I like to talk more about team stuff than I do the individual players first, and then we can get into more individual stuff. Power play goes technically 0 for 3 tonight. It's really 0 for 2. The third one was a 20-second nothing burger. I don't think it was horrible. I think especially the second unit on the second one had a pretty good shift. It did feel like they were at least more willing to shoot the puck tonight, but the puck doesn't go in the net, and at times the sense of urgency felt lacking to me. On one hand, 0 for 2 is not like some horrible night for the power play. On the other hand, you score on one of those and you're tied, and this is a completely different game.
Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at, is especially after how much we see them struggle during the last game. It's something you hope is a fix. You hope can be somewhat remedied. And, if it looked phenomenal, I might not be as mad.
Sure.
If they're generating more chances, shooting more, creating a more dangerous power play, I'm not as mad. But it didn't look great tonight. The second unit generates the most chances, but at the same time, I'm still not impressed.
Yeah.
And you can be a great 5-on-5 team. You can be the best team out there, but if you're not scoring in those man advantage opportunities when it matters, it's gonna come to bite you in the you-know-what. And that's where it kind of sits for me.
I think the glaring issue with the 5-on-4 power play for me is, and we talked about this while it was happening on the watch along, there's a stretch of 4-on-4 hockey in this game that genuinely looks better from the Avs than their power play does.
Yep.
Why? How is that happening? There being more room because you took one of your own guys off the ice cannot be an acceptable reason that 4-on-4 looks more dangerous than your power play where you have an extra guy.
That I don't know.
I
don't know.
imagine if we knew, we'd be head coaching or coaching the power play for the Colorado Avalanche right now.
They might need it.
They would love an answer, I'm sure.
No, it's that seems like the only logical explanation is that there is less, or more room on the ice for them to work with. But at the same time, that it just doesn't seem feasible to me at that point that is the answer for this. And even that, like, how is it that an even strength situation looks better than that? It's the same question I was asking again on Thursday, is how the penalty kill looks more dangerous in some situations than the power play does. That is a problem.
It is. There is no. I try to be pretty balanced and be like, yeah, this is a problem, but there's reasons for it. There's context. The power play is a problem right now. Mm-hmm. It is just a problem.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Full stop.
Yeah.
There. Like, it's, and I hate it because we're not that far into the season yet. It is still relatively early on.
Yep. And again, like, even now I'll give a little bit of context. We know it'll get better.
Yeah.
Just by happenstance, the Avs have too much talent to be a 10% power play. Pucks will start going in more than they have just by they won't get goalied every night.
Right.
But also, it has to be better. You can't just be like, oh, well, we're on a cold streak. You have to actively go out and make it better.
Yep.
That you got to fix it. If I had the perfect answer, I'd tell you, but whatever you're doing, we are now approaching game 10 and you have 4 power play goals on like 35 chances or something like that.
No, that's where it gets to me. Like, if it were less volume when it comes to power play opportunities, I may not be as mad with just 4. And again, it's early on in the season, but with as many opportunities as they've had to workshop it during games and figure that out, I'm not happy with it at all.
You shouldn't be. You should not be happy with the power play. I think that is totally fair. Tonight, a lot of things you can be unhappy with, though.
At least you can even it out, right?
Yeah, sure. Look, we talk a lot about fourth line, bottom pairing type stuff. For the most part, you're asking those guys to not lose you games.
Right.
And your bottom pairing tonight did a lot of losing you this game.
I haven't been super mad at what Solovyov's provided through the first couple games he's had.
Mostly okay.
Tonight was atrocious.
It was real bad.
And Malinsky was not much better.
Nope.
And I remember telling you during the watch along, I was like, I think he had a couple seconds with a different shift mate.
Yep.
And those were the best couple seconds of his game.
Yeah. Together, they were just brutal tonight. The second goal of the game for Boston is a direct mistake from Malinsky. And I understand Malinsky's cutting into the O-zone, trying to be aggressive offensively, playing the way the Avs want their defensemen to play. But you just can't miss that puck.
Nope.
It just can't bounce over your stick like that. It's a guaranteed 2-on-1 every time if you miss that puck. And it costs them, obviously. Puck management completely fell apart for Solovyov in this game. And I get, again, like systemic mistakes, I can forgive a little bit to a guy that is getting adjusted to the team still, joined the team after the season has started. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. But making simple puck errors has to stop.
No. And this is something, again, it comes down to consistency for me. If he's been as good as he has, or at least as decent as he has through the first couple games, I'd, of course, like to see that again. At the same time, he is a guy who is lacking a lot of NHL experience compared to a lot of the guys on there. So now becomes the question, okay, what's your next move?
Yep.
Is this a guy who is potentially scratched with a guy like Ashan coming up and potentially playing in a game or two? Again, swapping for guys who maybe don't have as much NHL experience. But at this point, anything is better than what we saw from Solovyov tonight.
Yeah, I agree. It's in this stretch of 3 games, you've kind of been living with the Avs issues because they're a really good team, and they're even through their issues, they're able to be competitive. They even made this game a 1-goal game. Mm-hmm. But there do need to be consequences for poor play at some point. And I'm not saying every time somebody plays poorly, you should bench them, but we even saw halfway through this game, Jared Bednar threw the lineup out the window. You're getting Nichushkin shifts on the first line. You're getting Nature's shifts on the second line. Guys are getting promoted, demoted all over the lineup because you have to find something at a certain point. And the Avs don't have a ton of options on defense right now, so it is what it is. If they want to go with Ashawn over Soloviev, fine. I'm good with it. But we need to find a little more even keel play from the Colorado Avalanche at times. And I think it's funny because the Avs are who they are. I don't want them to change how they play hockey.
It's a dangerous system of hockey.
Right. But maybe sometimes you have to take a step back and say, do I need to take this risk every single time? Do I need to make this high danger play every single time? And you live with that answer being yes if it's Nathan MacKinnon or Marty Necas, because that's what they do. But some of the guys down the lineup, maybe you say, hey, this potential turnover isn't worth it.
And this is where I'll turn back and say I really love the way that they worked during the first period.
Yeah.
Because not only was it simple hockey,
great.
not only was it simple hockey, but they're starting to implement those things that they know players are good at. If you're creating a fancy rush or things of that sort, if it's working for you, that's awesome.
Yep.
But when that no longer starts to work, that's when
you got to figure something out.
Right.
Yeah.
You simplify your game.
Yeah.
And it looked like that step was not realized.
Not really. I would even argue they took a step backward.
Yeah.
In that regard, because like you said, first 14 minutes or whatever it was, shooting pucks towards the net, going and earning pucks, doing all of the right things. Yeah, sometimes someone would try a move, and you're good with that when you're playing well and things are going your way. But especially in that second period where life was tough at times for the Avs.
Yeah.
You can't try and make the stretch pass through two guys. You can't try and, I'm going to take the tough angle. I'm going to make the best play when you just need a good play.
Yeah. Find something that works that is hard to mismanage, and you have a different game here. You have a game that looks cleaner. You have a game that looks more effective, and a game that at the end of the day, once you start working on that and building that up, it's a game that Boston all of a sudden has to shift and work around.
Let's talk about the third goal, because the third goal was really the backbreaker. Being down 1 goal going into the third period, that's a real hockey game. And you were 10 seconds from getting there. Who knows what the game looks like? Another question. I'm really good at asking questions where the answer is both. But who shoulders that? Is it Josh Manson going the wrong way around the net, or is it Scott Wedgwood cheating?
I feel weird saying both here, but it really...
It's always both.
It's always both. I almost put a little bit more of that on Wedgwood. Just even if Manson's anticipating the player going around the net, Wedgwood's got to hold that post. Full stop.
I agree.
Like that's... Not that I've ever played goalie in hockey, but I played goalie in soccer. And
a lot bigger net.
Much bigger net, but one of the things you worry about is getting that post covered, even if it's not you. And that's where I worry with Wedgwood, is that should be a very simple goalie 101 type play, and that it comes to bite him. Yeah,
it's hard. Because I understand, okay, Manson goes around that way. Wedgwood assumes that the Pasternak is cutting in behind the net, going that direction. But also, you got to trust your defenseman to not give up that wraparound then. If he is going that way and your defenseman goes that way, they're going to collide.
Manson's got to have a good stick
Let
there.
Manson make the play, and if a cutback like that happens, it shouldn't be in your net.
Right.
It just shouldn't. But also, Manson just... go direct to the guy, chase him out of there, and we're not even talking about this.
Right.
So
it's very much so an anticipation play.
Yep.
at that point, again, you want him to chase him to the near side or from near side. It is what it is, unfortunately, and I hate saying that, but
one of my favorite sayings.
I don't know. I go back to Wedgwood every single time on that play.
While the Avs did give up some major errors in this game, there wasn't enough danger in this game to feel good about the performance from Scott Wedgwood. And that isn't, I don't want to take credit away from him. He made multiple great saves on the power play, made some awesome ones, but then you let in realistically 2 goals you probably shouldn't, and it takes away from all those saves that you made.
And what's really unfortunate, too, is his second period was the best period that
right
he
up
had.
until the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, no, he had, I thought the second period was his best, aside from that. And you see him start to learn from some of those mistakes that he made in the first and realize, okay, I am a capable goaltender. I can do this. And that wasn't enough for the Colorado Avalanche to be like, okay, we can fix this. We can turn this around.
Yeah, I don't think the Avs are coming out of this game, hit the panic button, oh my God, there's so many problems. No, there are things they need to fix. There are things that I would even throw into the unacceptable category in this game. But you're also 5-1-3. You don't like that you've lost 3 games in a row. That is bad. You don't like that you have these massive mistakes that, especially in the last couple of games, it feels like when something goes against the Avs, they're losing that momentum. But they also played for a bad game, this is a pretty good hockey game from the Colorado Avalanche, which I know is like an oxymoronic thing to say.
It's such a weird thing to say, yeah.
But it's not like the Avs went out there and Boston dropped 6 on them and it was like, oh, this game was just all the way over.
Right.
Horrible. Do want to get more into it, but we do need to take our second break of the show too, as we are brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Bet365. You can jump in with Bet365 today. Use the DNVR 365 code when you sign up with a new account. You bet $5 on anything, win or lose, and you get $200 in bonus bets. I don't know. Maybe take a live bet on the Avs to lose if they give up crazy, terrible plays twice in a row in 40 seconds.
Is that something you can bet?
I mean, you probably wouldn't get great odds at that point, but you could probably put some money on it. I don't know. You can bet on a lot more than just hockey, though. You can bet on pretty much every sport with Bet365. So download with the QR code on screen there, and remember to use the DNVR 365 code to get your bonus bets, which can be used on totals, player props, winners, losers, and more, whatever you want to bet with. Do it with Bet365. Of course, when you do gamble with them, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. And then, once you're in with Bet365, making yourself a little bit of extra money on the side, you can get yourself hooked up with Game Time to actually go watch the games in person. You can download the Game Time app today and use code DNVR to get $20 off your first purchase with Game Time. Of course, terms apply. When you get in there, you can save money in tons of different ways, whether it be their last-minute ticket deals, their section selector, or search for the tickets you want. And Game Time's Picks feature will filter out all the junk and only show you the best tickets for the best price. So get Game Time today. They even guarantee you the best price. If you find tickets cheaper elsewhere, they'll reimburse you 110% of the ticket price. They're an official partner of a bunch of different leagues. Get your tickets wherever you want, whenever you want. Even if you're not going to an Avs game, go watch the Blue Jays hopefully beat the Dodgers. Those tickets are probably way too expensive. I don't know. Maybe don't get those. Do it with Game Time, though. Of course, go get them. Over 15 million people use Game Time to get their tickets. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. Is it a concern? I think through the early portion of this season, and honestly, even in other games where they've had issues, Colorado has showed a lot of resilience. Coming back, playing the right way. Was there a little bit of a lack of that in this one?
In a way. Not nearly as much as maybe you needed from them. I think if that little third period push happens sooner, maybe you get some sort of different result. 18 seconds just is not enough.
It's not
time to
too
work
little,
with.
too late. Absolutely.
So I think the resilience started to kind of rear its head a little bit, but at the end of the day, it was lacking in certain areas. There is no doubt about that. I
do wonder how much of it is execution as opposed to anything else, because I don't think there was a lack of effort. I think Boston did a good job of making their lives hard. And at times, I think the Avs just struggled to execute, especially in the offensive zone. They struggled to get off the wall. They struggled to get to the most dangerous areas of the ice at times. Mm-hmm. Not that it was horrible. Again, 14 high danger chances. They did a fine job of it, but it also seems like Boston was making them settle for maybe shots or opportunities that they didn't want at times.
No, absolutely. And I mean, you and I talked about it during the watch along too, is those blue line shots started to get really, really predictable. And that's not going to win you hockey games. Yes, 14 high dangers is great, but you've got to create those closer to the net and make them move from the middle of the ice, because them clogging up that slot closer to the net was really becoming an issue for the Avalanche. And that's where I'd like to see a little bit more creativity. It started to get too predictable, and at that point, you're not going to do anything with that.
Yeah. It's hard because a lot of this will come down to the response. If they go out and beat New Jersey tomorrow, all right, who cares? Like, no one's too worried about a loss to Boston in a game where you got goalied a little bit, things didn't bounce your way a little bit, and your mistakes got capitalized on. But if you go out and lose to New Jersey tomorrow, now you've lost 4 in a row.
You talk about the trap a little bit. Is this a situation where the Avalanche are looking at we played a okay team today, we play a better one tomorrow, and they step out playing like that?
I don't think so. I don't think you can call it a trap game with the way they started. They understood the assignment. They just didn't maintain what they needed to. And I get it. I saw someone in the Toyota chat talking about it. Yeah, the way they played for the first 14 minutes wasn't sustainable. You're not going to play that high for the entire game, but it's about managing the lows. You can't go from 15 great minutes of hockey to probably the worst 40 seconds of the season. Mm-hmm. That it can't fluctuate that much.
No.
And that's where it's not like the Avs fell into the trap there. They just made some major mistakes that were bad. They need to clean those up. They can't make them. But glaring issues like that are not the ones I worry about, because those are like, just do better, right? Wedgwood's got to keep his post on the first goal.
Yeah.
You don't have to do a major conversation about everything that went wrong there. Sam Malinsky just can't let that puck get past him. You don't need to have a major conversation about everything that went wrong there. It's okay, those things happened, and then what did you do? Mm-hmm. How did you get the momentum tilted back in your favor? Did you take advantage of those power plays? Did those power plays at least get you up and running and playing quality offense again? And the answer there is no. And that's where my concern is, because you're not going to play it for perfect 60 minutes. You're going to have mistakes every game, and you can't let those mistakes affect you to the point where it derails the rest of the hockey game.
Right. It's interesting to me, though, with that said, how much this team over the last couple of games has harped on a full 60-game hockey game.
They didn't have it tonight.
No. So that's still something, even though like you are looking for that consistency from your players game in, game out, but being able to play at least somewhat dangerous hockey for a full 60 minutes. Yes, it's not going to be at one level the entire 60, but being able to put out a dangerous team, put up decent puck management, create offensive generation, finish pucks, like that's where the big issue lies for a full 60, and you're not getting that.
And you need your offense to win you a hockey game. Mm-hmm. They've done a good job of keeping them in games, getting those overtime points, fighting. You need your offense to win a game.
Yep.
Wedgwood has stolen some games for you earlier in this season. You need to help him out in one of these and score enough that he can have an easy night.
And I do want to shout him out again, too, despite the, weird play that he had with Wedgwood. Josh Manson had a fantastic night generating offense. I thought he looked really, really good.
He was actually really good outside of that one play.
Yeah. Outside of that one play, I really, really like Josh Manson tonight. But you talk about things being unsustainable. That is not sustainable. You can't expect Josh Manson to be one of the only guys driving plays to the net.
Yeah. To take a slightly more positive look at it, I do think the dam will break eventually. If you're looking at the Colorado Avalanche, their depth has not been a problem when it comes to the offense all that much this year outside of that second line. So it's not like one night where your depth doesn't necessarily give you the production that you're looking for is an alarm bell. It's just not something that I'm going to run into and be like, oh, your third line, which wasn't great today. They've played 8 straight pretty great games.
Yeah.
Your third line's not going to be perfect every night. You can't jump on them all the time for that. And I want to read this off because I think it's interesting. I have to pull up the stats here. But you look at a guy like Victor Olofsson, who at 5-on-5 has produced a ridiculous amount of expected goals for. And the puck just has not gone in the net for him when he's shooting. The dam is going to have to break on some of these guys who are playing too well. Olofsson, Landeskog, even Brock Nelson only has the one deflection goal. And even if I didn't like his game very much tonight, these players are too talented and too good of shooters for the goal scoring to just completely disappear for the entire season. Landeskog, Nelson, both pretty consistent 20-goal guys throughout their career. Olofsson, obviously a great shooter throughout his career. He was brought in to be a shooter and has found ways to be effective by passing the puck. Even guys down the lineup. Devon Taves has 0 points this season, not necessarily because he's played poorly, but it's just the Avs have to work so hard for every single goal they're scoring this year. Eventually, they're going to have games where, as a team, their shooting percentage is significantly better than what it ended at, like 5% tonight, maybe like 7%.
Yeah,
they're going to have games where they shoot more like 15%.
For me, kind of comes down to you can only use they had a really hot goalie excuse.
Yeah, you got to beat a goalie eventually, for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest thing for me is, yes, they've run into some really good goaltending that maybe has not shown up for them consistently so far in the season, but somehow the Avalanche bring that out of them. Maybe that's, a compliment to the Avalanche in a way.
Yeah.
That's something they're preparing for. But that's also something that the Avalanche have to prepare for as well, is they're going to come up against a goaltender who's acting like he's going to put up a shutout every single night. And at that point, it's on your guys to produce. It's on your guys to be able to persevere and finish through that kind of situation.
And you saw, it's not like the Avs are incapable of this. If you go back before this losing streak, look at the Columbus game. Elvis was playing out of his mind for the first half of that game, but the Avs cracked them. They put the goals in they needed to, and they come away with the win. And I think that's maybe the biggest difference tonight than compared to some of those wins is the Avs didn't find enough to break the back.
No.
Which
is scary to think about because, again, 14 high danger chances.
Yep.
You get the most during that first period, but you don't. It's not like you're putting up bad numbers during the second and third.
You just got to finish them.
Yeah.
So you could give me 100 high danger chances and I wouldn't finish one.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not an NHL hockey player. NHL hockey players got to finish some of those.
Right. No. There's a reason you make it to the big leagues, and it'll come eventually. I'm confident in that, but it's not going to until they learn to crack goaltenders sooner. For me,
they just. I'm 9 games into the season, and I'm out of ways saying the Avs have to do a better job of scoring.
Right. There's only so many different ways you can say it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in their wins, it's been easy, right? Like, it's funny to say that because, you're winning a lot of games 4-1, 3-1. You're getting those third, fourth goals, or you were in their last couple of losses. But it's the scoring rates. It's not the actual number of goals when you look in a game. When you look at night in, night out, the Avs pushing 40 shots on net, and they're hovering. I think at 5-on-5 after tonight, they'll be down to like 8 or 7% shooting as a team at 5-on-5.
Right.
It's got to be better than that.
Yeah.
That's all. I wish I could sit here and be like, here's how you fix it. Shoot better. That's how you fix it.
Yeah. I feel like that should be the end of the conversation right there. Like that's it really. I did not play hockey growing up, so I feel weird saying that, but like you have to shoot to score. And some of those chances are coming, but for me, at a certain point too, it also comes down to a question of quality versus quantity.
There was definitely some of that tonight, for sure.
So,
we can move on here because I'll just keep talking in circles forever about this if we don't. But another silver lining, I do not want to tell you that it was all bad tonight because I don't think it was all bad. It was obviously bad. They lost.
Yeah.
But penalty kill, perfect again.
Mm-hmm.
Credit there. That unit continues to be really, really good, even if it is Wedgwood making some great saves on it. Your special teams battle continues to be okay because of how good your penalty kill is.
Yep.
So that deserves a ton of credit. Top line, I do want to give credit again. You got what you needed out of your top line tonight. Even if the second goal comes a little bit late, your top line still scored 2 goals tonight. You just didn't get the goal from anybody else, whether it be your defense, your middle 6, your bottom 6, whoever you're looking at. You can't look at your top line and say, we're not good enough up there.
No.
So
it's a dangerous top line as long as they're producing that night in, night out.
Yep. All right. Let's role play the other side of it. You're Jared Bednar. What are you telling your team after this game?
I feel, unfortunately, it's the thing that they have harped on, or at least Landeskog has mentioned that he's harped on for a good portion of the season. It's a full 60 effort.
Okay.
It's that's really what I'm going in there saying. That and second line, I feel like there's a big conversation that Bednar needs to have, especially with Nelson after this game. That, we gave you a paycheck to perform a certain way.
There are expectations here.
Right. So, full 60 from all of your guys. Because as much as I love the effort from Landy and Mac during the first period, you're not getting that from your other guys.
Yep.
And that starts to become the issue for me, is throughout a 60-minute game, it's really difficult to win hockey games when you're not staying consistent through that stretch.
True.
Landeskog, I'd love to see more from the fourth line, I will say, as much as I like them.
You got to play them to get that, but yes.
Right, but no, that's what I'm saying, though, too, is if you could work a little bit more with that fourth line so you're not shortening the bench that much, and maybe you become a little more confident and a little more trusting in a guy like Bardakov to produce and at least do something where you're not putting him in there saying, okay, don't let them score.
Yeah.
Like that. I feel like that's a conversation that maybe needs to be had, because then you're putting a lot of pressure on your top 9. And as well as I think they're playing, we do talk about the Avalanche being a deep team.
They are.
And while having a deep top 9 is great, I'd love to have a full 4 that they could run out in most situations.
Yes. And the way you get Bednar to trust that unit is keep your leads. You scored first in this game. Play from ahead. And they didn't do a good enough job of that. If the Avs are winning in this game, that fourth line is coming over the boards significantly more than we saw them come over the boards in this game. And this is maybe the concern I have across this stretch of losses, of something we're seeing consistently over these last 3 games. The Avs seem a little bit too comfortable playing from behind. And that's not a bad thing in some ways, right? You need to be comfortable. You're going to trail in hockey games. You need to find ways to come back. But a little bit more urgency in saying, hey, we should never let it get to this point.
Yeah.
At the start of the season, I think for the first 3 games, the Avs never trailed.
Yeah.
The games got tied, and then they would get that next goal. It's when issues start to compound on top of each other. The Avs give up 3 goals unanswered in a row. I guess they answer with 18 seconds left, but that hardly counts.
Yeah.
But when those goals start stacking up, it becomes very hard to push back. Instead of even a world where, all right, you score, Boston scores. Even if Boston gets the next one, okay, you have to go get the next one.
Yep.
In these last 2 games, we've seen those multi-goal leads build up against them, and it's really hard. It's really hard to come back from those, regardless of who you're putting out on the ice.
I want to pose this because I saw this in chat and kind of laughed it off for a second, but I'm kind of like rethinking this now. Yes, we talk all the time about early starts and getting on the board early. But in a game where maybe the tone hasn't quite been set yet, is this a situation where the Avalanche scored a little too early and because they couldn't get anything else going?
No, I don't believe in that. No, when the Avs score did not change the inflection point of this game, right? The problems that were caused by the Avs have nothing to do with when they scored, and they continued to play really good hockey for the next almost 10 minutes after they scored. It's not like they scored and said, all right, we did it, we're done. No, they continued to play. And then the silly mistakes happened. They got down. Look, there's also some human element to this. Of course, a 40-second situation where Boston gets 2 goals. Yeah, they're going to start playing better. They're going to have more energy. There is a flow to a game that comes with that. But you want to see the Avs turn those tides, or at least push those tides back more effectively. So I don't think scoring too early is the issue. I think maybe giving up a little bit on the pushback is more of an issue. It's one, you don't want to ever make 2 mistakes in a row that bad. And different people are at fault. It's not the same guy making the same mistakes, but
that almost makes it an even bigger issue to
talk
about.
Yeah, right. Now you have multiple things that you're like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. But you can't let those mistakes dictate how you play. Because again, as much as it's frustrating that right now every mistake seems to be going in the Avs net, mistakes happen every hockey game. They're not going to go away. You're not going to fix every single mistake. You cannot play a perfect hockey game, and if you try, you're only going to make it worse.
Right.
So you have to be able to play through the mistakes. You have to be able to respond to the mistakes. And that response just wasn't very good from the Avs in this one.
No, I'm in full agreement.
Yeah, I do feel like we're getting a little too deep in the weeds on one loss. I don't want to
It is, again, the first regulation loss of the season.
But also, especially a loss like that one, from a viewership standpoint, is incredibly frustrating. And I'm sure it's 2 times as frustrating for the guys actually playing in the game and in the locker room. And and you know they're going to be upset with themselves. You're going to be upset with maybe they didn't get the bounces. You're going to be even upset with the reffing, which it wasn't actually that bad. That last call was just inconsistent. And it's what you do with that energy. To circle back to what I said earlier, if the Avs are frustrated and they come out tomorrow against New Jersey and take their frustration out by doing a bunch of dumb, stupid hockey things, that's bad.
I think that's where it comes for me. I wish this loss had not come in the first game of a back-to-back.
Same.
Because it's something, there's something to be said about having that time to reflect and move on versus, throwing it in the trash and moving on. I'd love if they had more time to sit on this and break down what went wrong as opposed to just moving into another game. I'm sure there's a lot to talk about when they get back from New Jersey, though.
It really is a worst case scenario game for the first part of a back-to-back. Mm-hmm. A game where you ended up expending maximum energy to still get a loss because you're chasing the game the whole night. Mm-hmm. You're pushing. You're cutting that fourth line. You're getting big minutes to your top guys. And now you have to go play in 20 hours. There it's at 11 a.m. here. I get 1 p.m. local start.
Yeah.
After a 3 p.m. local start, you have not set yourself up for success on the second half of this.
No.
At all.
Nope.
And the expectation is that doesn't matter, and you have to go find a way to be better tomorrow.
Yep. It sucks.
It does.
But that's where the mentality of we have bigger and better things to do tomorrow comes into play.
And the good news is the Avs have been really good with this core on Sega Babas. They do find ways to be effective and overcome some of that stuff, which would be big. It does feel the Avs need a building block right now. Every team is going to go through ups and downs in a season. You've lost 3 in a row. You shouldn't be happy with that, even if some of them are in overtime, in shootouts. You got to now prove that you're a team that can stop the bleeding.
Yep.
Every team's got to go through it at some point in the season. Prove you're that team. Prove you're the team that will overcome the adversity.
With that mindset.
Yep.
With knowing how Jared Bednar works and throwing that all out the window. If you're Jared Bednar after this game, you've got 2 goaltenders at your disposal. Which one do you use tomorrow?
I use Minor.
Yeah.
I for sure use Minor. I don't think you can look at what Wedgwood has done in the past 2 games and feel confident. Obviously gets pulled in the previous game. And tonight, again, regardless of what you want to blame on Wedgwood and what you don't, I don't really care. You gave up 3 goals on 20 shots. You just are going to need better than that. Mm-hmm. And not that I think Wedgwood isn't spiraling. I don't think it's...
No.
He'll be fine. But you also have to make decisions when it comes to, 1, you want to keep your players honest. Mm-hmm. 2, you have to do something, right? Like, you only have so many levers to pull as a head coach when you want to see your players make the right decisions and improve their play, maybe think a little bit smarter to not give up those bad mistakes in the same way. And I know a goalie swap in between games isn't the same message as pulling a goalie mid-game, but we saw it worked. Mm-hmm. The Avs played significantly better when Minor went in against Carolina. Mm-hmm. I think you got to try it.
Yeah. No, this is a goaltender proven at least lower levels. You see what he's able to do during the playoffs with the Colorado Eagles, and he was incredible. The biggest worry for me was, when you play him, he's going to have all this rust. He looked incredible on Thursday. And yes, we know maybe from a superficial standpoint that trust is not there from Bednar. But
you hit a point where it's a Sega Baba, right? And if you do not trust Trent Minor to play one of the games in a back-to-back, why is he in the lineup?
Yep.
Why haven't you gone out and gotten a goalie that you trust to play a hockey game in the NHL?
Yep.
Because him sitting there doing nothing doesn't make any sense for anybody.
And then becomes the question, though, too, if the only times you're deploying him are when you pull your best goaltender, what is that doing to your best goaltender's mindset at that point?
Yeah. You run the risk of having a real problem if Wedgwood goes out again tomorrow and plays poorly again. if you have 3 games bad in a row, that's going to affect anyone's mental. And I know goalies are a different breed and all that, and I'm not trying to knock goalies or anything, but it is by far the most mentally challenging position in the NHL.
Yeah.
And you're not doing them any favors by running them into the buzzsaw, especially against a team that's capable the way New Jersey is.
Yeah. That is my biggest concerning point is the last thing where the conversation of fatigue has already come up with Wedgwood. The conversation of him not being a starter and playing like it through the first 10-game stretch has already become a conversation. At some point, you have to look around the league and see how other goaltenders are being deployed and potentially change your mindset as a coach.
Yeah.
That's a full stop.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like the workload has been incredible. It's not like the Avs have played a ton of games, but Scott Wedgwood has never played a workload like this in his career.
No.
At least not at the NHL level. His maximum games ever in a season was 32. And he struggled that year because of the number of games that he played. So
he's already almost a third of the way there, which is
right. And as much as I get NHL coaches are trying to win the game they're in, and they're trying to make the best decision in the moment for that game, and they're not worried about the long term necessarily, somebody needs to be.
right.
Somebody in the organization needs to say, hey, we don't have to win every single game. We're not going to win every single game. And you forcing it with a guy who might need a day off just isn't what we need right now.
Right. I guess there is a silver lining in all of this, like I mentioned, with heading into this trip, is Bednar was not sure whether or not Blackwood was going to make this.
Yeah.
Which could indicate that he is closer
That's
than...
closer than a no.
Right. So that is a silver lining for me, is hopefully at some point soon within the week you get your full starter back.
Yep.
But what do you do in that stretch with Wedgwood floundering?
Give Minor a game.
Yeah.
I'd have given him this one,
Yeah.
but they didn't feel that way, and now you have a question mark on what you do tomorrow.
Yeah.
We do have one super chat to get to, and then we will wrap things up. $2 from Ryan, who says, Avs massive hole at 2C for the 4th year in a row. Again, I'm not willing to go there yet. We need to get to game 20. If Nelson has 5 points in the next 5 games, I think we all kind of breathe a little bit and go, okay, it was a weird start, but they figured it out. If Nelson has no points in the next 5 games, yeah, alarm bells are going to be going off.
Yeah. For me, too, again, it comes down to a consistency issue. The last thing I want to get into a habit of doing is doing this dance for the next 40 games.
Give me consistency. Give me a level. You don't have to produce every night, but you got to produce most nights, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not ready to have the 2C conversation again. I just can't be. But we are over time already. So let's wrap this thing up. Bailey, any final thoughts from you on this one?
No, with this, not many anyway. With the situation at hand, as much as I'd love for them to again have the time to reflect on this and move on, there is the reality that there is a game tomorrow, an early game tomorrow,
indeed.
And you kind of have to throw this one in the trash a little bit and be like, there's good things to take away. Take those good things, throw the rest away, bring all that good into tomorrow and work on it.
I agree. Again, you don't go into the film room and break these issues down that you had tonight. Everyone who messed up tonight knows where they messed up.
Yep.
Go fix it. Play tomorrow. Win tomorrow. Never think about this again.
Yeah. I'd like to not do that.
I would love for them to score on the power play 3 times, and then we can stop
Is
talking
that,
about it.
The revenge power
Maybe,
play? We see that
maybe.
against New Jersey
Please,
tomorrow.
give me that. I need that in my life. We are going to wrap this one up. Thank you for tuning in. Everybody loses a lot of games every year. There will be more, but hopefully the Avs can get back in the win column soon. We appreciate y'all. This has been the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.